Ready? Yeah, you are.
Let me check. Yeah, 5 minutes late. Let's get started with the Visitor Health District Finance, Legal, Administrative, and Real Estate Committee meeting, January 13th, 2026 at 3 p.m. This will be our call to order. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
And I'll second that. On to the meeting minutes.
All in
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Am I voting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She took over Arthur's spot?
Yeah.
Officially on everything? All right. Meeting minutes. We have the meeting minutes from December. They're there for you to review. Have any questions?
I move approval.
Okay, any public comments?
No public
All
comment.
right, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comments at this time, comments from the audience may be made on items not listed on the agenda that are of public interest and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The committee has a policy of limiting speakers to not more than 3 minutes. The committee cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda. Public input may be offered on an agenda item when it comes up for discussion and or action. Are there any public comments?
No public comments. None.
Okay. CEO report, I don't see a lot there.
I do have some items that are not on the agenda, so, just information items. One is, regarding the condo property with the land lease that we have in an escrow process. The update that I have is the original agreement had a contingency date of January 31st of 2026. And then a close of escrow date of February 27th, 26. Due to the holidays, etc., they have not held their HOA meeting yet to have their ballots complete the voting. So that is scheduled for January 29th. The legal counsel indicates that he's pretty positive that it will have the required votes that is necessary to pass. So the amendment that I executed was just extending the dates a month.
Okay.
So the contingency date is February 27th and the estimated close of escrow is March 31st of 26th. And then the other item is just an update on the classification and compensation study that
Yep.
that we're talking about. I do have 2 additional estimates that came in, but the last one just came in yesterday. So just to give you the update that we do have those, we will be presenting those at the February meeting.
Any comments on that?
Congratulations on 100% occupancy.
It's awesome. Yeah, we'll have some good update with a new lease there as well. So,
Okay.
So Eric.
Eric, on to you.
All right, I am starting on page 9 of the packet.
Mhm.
As far as updating current annual rent, including CAM, is estimated at $1,622,197. We do have on the leasing activity, we did have DPMG sign a 5-year lease for Suite 1 West 105 106, which was the lease that was the suite that was recently vacated by Columbus Thomas that we talked about last month. And this item will be presented as an informational item later in today's agenda.
Sorry, Eric, you lost me when you said page 9. What
Oh,
page are we talking about?
That's page 9. I go off the full
Okay,
packet.
on that one, okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry, it's for my own notes as well as
Okay.
so. And we'll have that is info item today, and that's all I had on the CAO report for now.
Great. I don't think we need to take any actions on that information. Any questions? Any questions? Financial reports. Just
On
do the
the
summary. Do you have anything specific you want to call out, or can we just start going over them?
I was just wondering overall, well, first of all, I wanted to hear from you, and then I just have an overall question of some of these are just, things seem to be very close to the budgeted amount, and we just wanted to, other than hitting each one, just overall, maybe you'll address it in your comments.
Yeah, my comments are brief. I'm looking at page 13, which is the summary increment, budget and yeah, looking for the wrong page here. Profit and loss summary here. So what I just wanted to know, we've got income up approximately 474,000 year to date, so halfway through the fiscal year. That's primarily due to the investment performance. Expenses are under approximately 903,000, excluding the grants. We have awarded 4.5 million of the $5 million annual grant budget so far. We do have a discussion item later in today's agenda to discuss those steps. Then I was going to take a step back to the variance analysis, the prior page, just noting, so for the Las Palmas Medical Plaza, net income is up approximately 85,000 year to date. We do have professional services being one of the categories we are most under budget, which a good portion is related to strategic planning. So we had originally budgeted 700,000, but with being able to sign the contract with someone at a value of 250,000 plus expenses, that's where the biggest portion of that expense underage is coming in for. And then I just have a comment on the RPP at the end, so I can answer any of the other questions. That was kind of the.
I think the over budget items are all related to the properties, and I think those are just related to the HVAC, the property management, so all those landscaping expenses, those are just all the extra work that you've been doing.
Extra
the
work.
last few months. Okay, that was.
Or depending on how we get allocated evenly over that. So like landscaping, we get the trees trimmed usually twice a year, and so we had that, and so I can throw off that.
Thank you.
Sure.
We've had a lot of deferred maintenance issues, you know, with the pipes that are breaking.
Yes.
I assume that's maybe where you're posting that or maybe.
Correct. Well, deferred maintenance and the interior plumbing, as well as interior or building interior, are where those expenses are, because the plumbing related, and then there's been.
And you're booking those as repairs and maintenance.
Yeah, repairs on the walls, if there was any water intrusion, just making sure we're doing potential mold abatement and replacing any of the drywall as needed.
Thank you.
That kind of comes into our strategic plan at some point is, how do we want to, if we continue to own assets, being a public entity, is it better just to go in and get everything up to base, you know what I mean? Kind of knock out some of this deferred maintenance
Well, and
completely,
yeah,
while you have capital to do so, because I think there's a lot of risk and like financial risk, as well as just additional risk and complications in terms of operating it efficiently if you have a lot of deferred maintenance.
yeah. And that's one of them that, one of the items that we talked about in the last couple of months that we'll need to do an RFP for.
Yeah, I think we'll need to get a full assessment on that. As long as it fits our plan to continue owning the asset, then I think like something like that is probably in the works. But I don't know if it's ever been done since you've been here. Full deferred maintenance package.
Not that particular
Building,
item. We've
yeah.
done other projects there,
Yeah, but-
roofing, paving, landscaping,
Just kind of a complete deferred maintenance update
yeah.
and see what it's gonna cost. I mean, we put it out over a couple of years.
On the only other thing that happened with the financials was on page 36, which is the retirement protection plan, just noting we've had participant decreased by 1 since last month, and so we've had payouts for this year to date approximately 135,000.
Yep.
We are still working behind the scenes on coordinating how to encourage the closeout of the plan. We're meeting with outside legal counsel on Friday just to get some more information, get a secondary review on that before we start looking at all the elements involved, but.
Yeah, I think that's, again, another right move for us. If we're not gonna get into having employees in the hospital level.
Right.
Nothing on, would you mind just pulling up the credit card real quick and the CO discretionary? I just want to look at those together.
Credit
page
card
is that?
on page 33.
Yeah, that's
Here we go.
just to go over details, see if there's anything on here that we need to pull out. I just like to bring these up because they are just personal expenditures. So on my review, I didn't see anything here, buddy. I know you like to look over it. I just wanted to have your eyes look over it.
I did, and I really appreciate the fact that you added the number of persons that are attending these. It really helps.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
I thought that was really nice because it just gives a little more detail into the magnitude of what there. So
I didn't have any questions about them.
Let's see the discretionary is on page 35.
let's go to the 35. Yeah, just keep it.
Yeah, go ahead. Whatever you got.
Thank you. So there, it's good.
Pretty much.
We only had two transactions since, last night.
Yep, I didn't see a whole lot on there. Did you,
And Director Smith, we can coordinate at your convenience to have opportunity to sit down and,
Mhm.
you know, review, like a full month of statement with, you know, budget, et cetera.
if you have any questions, let us know. We'll help you.
I'd
look
be
through it all, but-
for-
I didn't see anything.
You just learned.
Did you see anything you wanted to call out?
No.
I'll send you. Okay. That was the two things I just wanted to make sure. we
Oh, the only,
Right.
just caught my attention is the CVET, holiday picnic that, actually was updated. Okay, that was it. Thank you,
You
sorry.
got it? Yeah. That looked pretty good. So,
Mhm.
okay. I didn't have anything else. Director Smith, anything?
No, sure.
I have a motion to approve the financial reports.
I move approval.
I will second those. All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Other matters.
This is an interesting one.
5-year lease?
The two-page thing that you're like,
Yeah.
what?
Well, I wanted to give you some good background.
Wow.
That's really very thorough.
Good.
Sure, yes, so we did have, as we noted last month, kind of a late notice from Dr. Cohen Wish Thomas, who was
Yeah.
originally gonna sign the lease, but they made the decision to close up their practice. Because, the pediatric, focus that they had in them closing that practice, that would have
We're
left,
on the lease?
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were going on to the other one. I lost track of the agenda.
Oh,
Sorry.
I didn't skip
Okay.
one today.
No, you're good. You're
Okay,
good.
I'm off.
Also,
Sorry
it was
about that.
premature.
Yeah, I was premature to give you that, that appreciation of that very thorough report, so I was off.
Okay.
I appreciate this report though.
So, yes, so we, because of the closure of that office, it was going to leave many pediatric patients of IHP and Desert Oasis, having to seek alternative care. And so we were able to coordinate with DPMG, who wanted to lease the space. They leased several spaces at the plaza, but they have the suite directly next door. And so, we were able to contact the president and Mr. Logston just to seek approval to go ahead and execute this agreement so we could get things going as quickly as possible, avoid any potential loss of care. And I think by the second, once we sign this, they were already working on knocking down one of the walls between the two suites, trying to work on expanding. Everything on the lease itself was very standard. Our market rate, $2 a square foot, standard annual increases, tenant improvement allowance, just to make sure that they can, get the suite up to speed compared to what they had on their others, because they do have 4 other suites. And one of the things that I do like about that is they've addressed the internal, decor the same in each of the suites, so that they're treating it kind of as one big
Great.
office with different, suites, and so the rooms are numbered between all the suites, and so.
Are they gonna connect them all together? Can they be contiguous together inside or not?
In this particular case, only the two
Okay,
suites
okay.
are connected, otherwise they're in different buildings across the plaza. I'm sure they'd love to have it on the same one, but they were kind of working on
Great.
what space was available. And so this is an informational item, but we did want to note that we took steps to contact both president and the treasurer beforehand, just to get approval on that to avoid any loss of coverage and maintain our 100% occupancy. So answer any questions you may have on that.
So, I don't have a question, with anything that's involved here. My question is it gonna trigger any expenses exterior? In the exterior, I know we did a lot of work with some of the other properties, there was some issues with safety.
We had to put a wheelchair ramp in.
Yeah, that was on the parking lot side. This is on the street side. So
It was just
there's-
And nothing anticipated. I mean, there's gonna be a couple $100 to upgrade the directory, but that's a standard practice whenever we
And
have.
then whatever, I'm assuming we're paying for the remodel inside, or at least. part of
Yeah,
it.
we do.
Well,
They just,
28.
yeah, so
28,000.
do they just backfill it? How does that happen? Do you see it, they just request it to
It's
you?
a reimbursement. Once they've completed it and paid for it, they need to provide the invoices, proof of payments,
And then you just
we will
write
walk
a check
through.
in for that,
and then we'll reimburse them for the value.
but not rent abatement. It's just.
No. And just so you know, I mean, with the type of finishes and that Dr. Kim puts in the suites, it's more like $65 to $70 a foot, and we're providing $15.
It's still nice though. 15's better than a lot of.
Oh, no, I agree. I agree. I'm just saying, that he's making them look really nice. like say, consist, like Eric said, consistent throughout their suites that they have. They do look really nice.
If they inspected for safety purposes for like fire, if they do some major improvements or just minor improvements?
Well, they're probably gonna do some, probably significant improvements, but probably moving walls and replacing all the finishes and different things like that. But we've recently completed the fire throughout, so we have the fire suppression throughout the entire building. That was one of the big things that we did throughout Dan's great Boston. So
But do they get any like sign off from the fire marshal or like the city for improvements, or are they beyond a certain level of necessity to actually get signed off from the?
I'm sure they'll have to have city inspections.
Okay.
For the city, oh, yeah,
If necessary.
Let's
especially
code compliance
fire.
for and everything, yeah.
Okay.
The rooms are moved, the fire
Crazy.
sprinklers were placed because of where the rooms were and the size of the room, so. That would be something that's.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Just for those.
I'll move to.
Actually, with
Like that reaction on
Yeah.
that, just information. Thank you for the.
We just wanted to make sure that we, approached, President Barraza and Director Logston before we executed the agreement.
Yeah, that's good.
We can keep that.
That's the right move, but we need to make those decisions quicker than they're on a monthly meeting. It's
Otherwise, if the.
not fair to them, they're ready to roll. Okay. Go ahead.
Next slide.
Um,
And I'm giving credit to Donna, Eric, and I put a little touches to it, but the report that you're talking about now for the budget and the grants and thank you for Donna and Eric.
This is going to program committee too, so if you
Yeah.
notice that it says to finance and program.
Most committees should have some input. I mean, primarily from F and A would be, the consideration of potential increase in budget, the annual budget, since. Maybe Eric, John, you guys can go through it. Give the overview and.
Yeah, did you want me to start off?
Yeah.
And then tomorrow. I'll put that.
We'll tag team.
So the key here, I'm gonna touch base on some of these bullet points. I know they're in the report, but they are very important in consideration of the entirety of this report. One of the main elements is we do budget 5 million annually for fiscal year grant budget. And after our last board meeting, we are having about 482,000 some change remaining. So with that, the current budget anticipates a surplus of approximately 3.1 million. So we wanted to know here, while we could increase the budget from 5 million to 8 million, we wanted
Hold
to.
on there. Eric, so those first two bullet points were the two areas that I was confused about. How can we have a surplus and then have that amount and then only have 482,000? Can you just clarify that?
Yes, the 482,000 is in the specific grant budget line.
Okay,
The 3 million is the entirety of the
Overall
whole
budget.
district budget.
thank you. Thank you.
So that would be a potential fix if we increase the grant budget, we could utilize that surplus and have more funds
That's a
available.
big discrepancy between the two, because I would think that it would be a bigger chunk for grants. And it's,
Well,
2 something per.
So how much are, but what
Maybe
percent
we
of our
could
budget
go-
are grants?
Is it possible that we could go
45%?
back to the
Hold it a
financial?
second, look at
I think it's fine, 40%.
was
To have some context.
Which is reasonable.
The grants, 95%. Keeps on surplus.
You get like,
Yeah, it's supposed to 11.
I believe that was, that's
about
what's
11.
sticking in my head, I just.
think it's 11.
Numbers, I wasn't
Sure,
sure.
I like to have my spreadsheets too.
Page 13, maybe.
Oh, I was looking for budget, so.
Yeah, he was looking at the, like, the
Oh, yeah.
budget line item, if it was 11 or so.
Yes, so what we budgeted for this fiscal year district-wise, 15 million in income and just under 12 million in expense.
Yeah.
So, so that's where we are referencing that 3 million. But what we wanted to note is we have quite a few grant applications which are larger amounts than we've seen in the past and longer durations than we've seen. Even including grants that exceed 5 million, so our total budget as it is. And the key here is you want to focus on, currently available funding. So we talked a lot about the 650 million, that's starting in May of 2027.
Still not.
And then sequentially over time, we don't get the full 650 million until 2057. So just kind of making note of
And it's
that.
annuity payments.
So also we have, the money that we had restricted for the building improvements that we now have available because we no longer, we still have to wait until the approval of the lease. But that would become available even sooner than May of 2027.
Right, in essence, that could be available at any point, but that is the only surplus that we have until we get that. And then since we are waiting to hear back from the verdict, that's kind of more of a very expensive. That's the guaranteed amount where the other one is in process and not currently available. So we've got bigger grant applications, longer grants, ones that exceed the budget itself. And then we started noting some elements here, which we'll bring up more tomorrow, that we have over 15 million in grants that have been submitted at this point, not with 9 applications. Of the 9, 6 of those fall within the high priority goals, number 2, 3, and 6.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, just those 2 fall into priority 2 and 3. And that covers over 14 million. So that doesn't include applications we haven't even received yet. Because we've been having some of the grants that are brought to the board or brought to the committee and board as part of the grant process. We've had some that have been approved to move forward with due diligence. But we would just wanted to note here, even if we just processed ones that already meet the goals, we would more than exceed the available funding, even if we increased that budget. So we kind of threw out a couple different ideas, and if you need to jump in at any time, please let me know. We threw out a couple different ideas on what to do because we still have the half of this fiscal year to address, whether it's utilizing that 500,000 and putting a focus only on applications which meet the high priority goals. We can focus on using that, approximately 500,000 towards any applications which are complete and submitted. Different avenues such as focusing the remainder to potentially focus on offset fallout from some of the federal funding changes. The last element we were noting is, or if we bumped up the grants, we could put that into any of those categories. But in doing so, part of what we're looking at here as well as tomorrow is just some feedback on there, because all the grants we have exceed the value, things for consideration such as limiting the value at the size of a grant award, limiting the duration, even trying to put out all the options, pausing the grants for the remainder of the year until we get that new strategic plan in place. All of those are just considerations we wanted to throw out to get feedback from the committees and board and see what the thoughts were for the rest of the year.
If I may.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so one of the reports that we get every month is the grantees that have already been approved, and if they've drawn down on that money. Are there any grantees that are not going to draw down any of the money in this fiscal year as have been planned for?
I don't think we know that at this point.
Well, also, maybe I'm paraphrasing what you're saying, but the money that will be paying out against progress reports and final reports and 10% retention does not come out of this remaining
okay,
money.
from
It's
previous
already
years.
been booked.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if it's already been booked though, is there any of them that, I kind of suspect that all of them have been producing well, and because you haven't reported anything otherwise.
Or
I
like
just
any
wanted
out of
to-
compliance or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
she's talking about if there would be unexpended funds from what was
Unexpended
already
funds.
awarded.
Anything
How
that.
they come up short. We don't necessarily know that, but they
Yeah.
can.
No, most of them,
Reallocated.
most of them
Okay.
do spend it down, yeah, as long as they meet the deliverables.
Wanted
And
to
if
make
some-
sure about that.
And if they haven't met the deliverables, then we can always offer like a no cost grant extension, so they can meet the deliverables with the funding, but it's very rare we have somebody that does not.
Well, I just noticed that there were 2 that kind of caught my attention, but I think it was on the foundation side though. It was, El Sol, no, the other one, the other promotor.
Vision.
Vision, and there was another one. I hadn't, but it was part of the foundation though. Do you remember? Okay.
Are you just talking about just that they have remaining funds that haven't been paid
That
out?
haven't even been drawn down, any of it.
Part of that, well, there's a couple that haven't had any payments this year, but some of those grants that are of longer durations might have their reports every 6 months. And so far this year, we've only had the 6 months. And so if they were a little behind in submitting their report, that
Okay.
could change quickly,
Okay.
once they do that. And then, as far as, talking about the question about the grants and when they're getting payouts, just as a reminder, when we book a grant, we expense the entirety of it and have it as a payable and just pay down
Mhm.
from it. So,
So that makes sense, but I was just wondering if any of them had, like you said, not expended or not expending it, but I know that was, unlikely, but I just wanted to make sure. I didn't leave it for. Second.
So I think the thing to consider with it, I mean, to me, if it wasn't for our strategic planning that we have going on, I think it's an easier decision because then it's a matter of, okay, do you decide whether you bump the budget and stay with our current strategic goals? Or do we pause in some way now because we have the strategic plan that we're working on? We pause in some way for a while we continue to work through the strategic plan and then focus on, because some of that's going to be carried over, I would imagine, from our current strategic plan. But then we have a better, stronger, long-term focus from our new strategic plan that carries over.
Well, since we're in this transition period of having to operate under our current plan, but knowing that the strategic plan that is gonna be updated. So I think that there's a need to kind of coordinate them to, if we see that they meet our current plan, like whether they're high priority, low priority, but that we anticipate, just based on, I guess we can't really anticipate what the board is going to say as a whole. I just think that you had warned us before about doing this, and that's why you wanted to hold off in grants a few months ago, and the board wanted to continue to fund, and knowing that we were going to kind of get to this problem of this transition period. So, since we didn't put a hold on it at that time, I think that we do have to consider funding some of them, but under some new criteria, some new limitations to be able to, and whether increasing the budget a little bit would be part of it. I think it might be a good idea so that that we are able, we have the funding, if we can get it out to the community, if they are meeting the high priority areas. I think we should consider that, but within a certain, not to be too high of amount, because we do have next year's to fund, and we really want to be operating under our new strategic planning period. That's what
Right.
I'm
I think it's an important thing you just said.
And that's the piece that, we still haven't established, say, for next year's budget, is it going to be, are we going to go with 10 million next year, or are we going to stay with a lower grant amount? We don't know that yet. I think we anticipate it will probably be higher. But we would be establishing potentially a precedence if we increase it to the 8 million. I'm not
No.
saying that's inappropriate to
Well,
do.
staff recommendation of those 3 bullet points here identified several potential options for grant awards, utilizing 500,000, which fall within the high priority. I totally agree with that. I think that we should definitely do that. Utilizing 500,000 source applications which are complete and submitted. I also agree with that. Utilizing 500,000 to offset. I think that's a big, that's not gonna be enough, but I agree with that, just to be consistent with that. Because I think that there's so many organizations that have been financially hurt by what's going on in our federal level. And increase any of the above options to incorporate So I agree with those 4 bullet points. I just don't know what.
And they're kind of either or.
Really?
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
how are you gonna make that 1.5 right there?
So,
Right, so that's what kind of the idea is. So if you look at like the first one, then, we're really talking about, do we just stick with the 500,000 that we have? And look at the grants,
mhm,
that $15 million worth of grants, and do we select a few out of there to utilize the remainder of the 500,000, put a pause while we continue through the strategic planning? That's one option. And then other option would be you could increase the 300 or the 3 million, but you're still not, based on what you were talking about, of the high priority goals. We're not gonna be able to fund all of the high priority goal grants either.
I think it's just the fact that we didn't have a little bit, and we were kind of just telling you move forward. But now hindsight is that we should have incorporated some of this thought process.
well,
You
it's a
know,
new
a few months
territory.
ago.
Well, and
And
the
that-
thing that I think that you're
because we've
talking
had,
about that
Like
we,
just last month, we got some major awards handed out. So having not incorporated this
Yeah, you're right.
this new, of trying to be, consistent with our budgeted amount, it's,
but if I may, I think what you're referencing to is when Director Rogers proposed doing grants that were outside of our high priority goals. And we had recommended that we don't do that because we do have a limited budget. And we were wanting to continue focusing more on the high priority goals instead of going with the housing.
We had some larger budgets too. We had the St. John's for $1 million.
So it wasn't.
yeah, that's what I'm.
Which is, I think she's talking about, we've had some big chunks that took 20% of our budget for the year. I think it's an important point though, because one, I think we need to operate within our budget as a public entity. It's so often that public institutions operate well with outside their bounds of budgets. And you put those there for a reason, to give you safeguards. It brings us to this point. If we didn't have a budget, we wouldn't even, that point that you just had is a very good point. It should be brought up that we really need to be judicial about how we distribute the money, meaning we don't want to pick winners or losers, but we really need to make sure they pass through this test of what we want to fund. And I also think part of that is like, how much of our money that we have do you want to dedicate towards grants? And that really goes back towards the strategic plan.
Mhm.
How much is capital investment? Look at what that building did for opening up a spot for delivering more care. We opened up a spot and it leased right away. So what's the need for new capital investments for that, which would be very good for the district to be a part of? So I think we really have to think that we shouldn't operate as a pass-through entity. Oh, we have this money, therefore we're going to hand it out. We really should be judicial about how much we want to allocate for grants, how much we want to allocate for capital investments, for operational expenses, and really get to that point. For so long, we just set 5 million and that was just it. And I think now we're really getting to the point where we need to think like, all right, what percent of what we bring in should we allocate out? What part should we set aside for a rainy day fund, which is nice to have in case there's an opportunity that comes and we're like, we need to act on it. So I'm in favor of, using the 500 judicially until the end of the fiscal year. I do ask, who sits on the program committee, part of what you brought up, if there's an emergency need in the community, like I don't know what's coming up in the next 4 months, 5 months, but that maybe we make an emergency approval for money if we see that there's something there that's really going to be grossly impactful. But most of these grants take a while to execute anyway, so we can have some piled up ahead of time. And when the new fiscal year starts, we'll know, hey, we've got 4 or 5 we've already screened that we held off, just so that we operate within our budget. Because I think that also, as I said at the beginning, is important.
But one other thing too, what we've done the last several years as well is award 750,000 from the district to the foundation at the end of the year. And so in this case, we haven't done that.
Right.
Within this current budget.
So that's I was just gonna say that, could we look to see whether we have any other funds that we have not used up to be able to increase that amount from 500 to a higher amount? And what you just said is that a conversation we've been having in this group for the last couple of months is that what really is the use of the foundation. There is definitely a benefit to having it. But right now, when we have the 750,000, we're probably not gonna use that for the foundation this year. So maybe we think about not moving it over and increasing that amount to make this a little bit higher amount to be able to address this transition period. Because I do believe that if we had thought about this, that this might be a problem earlier on, we would have incorporated something more fair to be incorporated. But now that if we could look at that 750, moving it over, and if there's any other funds that we could move over, so that we stay within the budget, but still are able to increase some.
Just for like clarification
Yeah.
purposes, I mean, doing that, I don't think is the right way to do it, because we're talking about this potential $3 million net profit on the district side. It's not a problem if we eat into that, reduce that sum by just increasing the grant budget. Because that would increasing the grant budget would reduce the profit part of it. It's not like we don't have dollars under the district. So moving dollars back from the foundation to the district, that's not the equation that we need to look at. The equation is, do we want to increase the grant budget to accommodate more than the 5 million of the budget that we have now? Because even if you move, say, 750 back, you're still going to be potentially granting 750,000 of grant budget or expense above the 5 million. So it's more about the budget than moving cash back from the foundation.
And isn't the 750 more to cover operational and other expenses in the foundation?
Yeah,
Not
so
much
like
moving
with
the
our
750 to grant out.
feedback work and, you know, the mobile
Mobile units,
clinics,
yeah.
mobile clinic stuff is under there, right? It might make more sense to move that back under the district with the new strategic
Yeah.
plan, because the mobile medical clinic kind of came out of the COVID process and all of that. So that's.
Well, I
100%.
definitely agree that those are good uses and we need to continue to support those. But what I just understood, and I'm now maybe I misunderstood, is that there was 750 that was not going to be used, that was going to be moved over. So if it's not going to be used, then I think we should use it. But if it is being used, then of course, no, we're not gonna at this point make a change to what we.
Right,
you know,
and it may not be that we use all 750 this year, but it just doesn't make any sense to move the dollars back to the district.
Have they been moved or are they just
Yeah,
allocated?
They're already moved.
Okay, so
She
they-
just said they were not.
We're talking, we haven't awarded.
We
a
would
new
award,
If we
So
did
she
that.
think, would you award less this year and keep the
you
carryover?
could
probably
do that.
wouldn't even award any of it.
Well, that's what she was suggesting, and that would leave 750 of what we've already allocated in our grant budget.
Mm.
Or not grant, sorry, not grant.
No.
It hasn't been
we haven't
allocated yet.
awarded.
If we wanted to award the 750, we would be over budget 250,000.
Oh, so what he's saying, we
that's-
haven't taken it out yet.
That we
Okay.
haven't even gotten to
So
that
that's-
point yet,
Wow.
which historically
Right.
we've done that. So if we wanted to do what we've
I
done
got it.
before, that would be 250,000 above what
We'd
the
already be over
existing
budget.
budget
Well,
is as.
So we probably wouldn't even move any over at the end of this
Correct.
fiscal year.
That makes sense.
Foundation.
Okay.
I think we're good in the foundation
Okay.
right now.
But we still have the looming, DPMG Health is still in the process of submitting, because their contract ended as of, December. I mean, as
October and
October,
September.
so yeah, so they're ready to submit, which those funds come from the foundation, the same.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry,
I
the
think-
DPMG was a district grant. So if DPMG submits a new grant for operations, that would need to come out of what we have, the 500,000 or budget. So essentially, there's not.
I
with the
think
budget as
any
is,
of
there's
that
not
comes out of the
enough to
district
do
at
that.
this point.
So all of the ones that are pending right now, could we have a list of all those so that we could see what is it that,
schedule, I think he has the grant payment schedule.
for the ones that are.
It wasn't included in this
Yeah, that
packet,
was-
but we do have it in the program committee packet. Actually, there's a spreadsheet that lists ones that have been actually submitted, 15.1 million, and then those that are working, 3.5 million.
Can I see that?
Sure. And what we've also done is we've allocated the different goals, which the grant can depict. So there, oh, here we go.
Oh, okay.
Make it easier for you.
Yeah, just scroll up there. Yeah, so the 3.5 has been
That's working.
requested, yeah, working.
Yeah, it hasn't been submitted yet, but if you scroll down, Andrea, the 15.1, this is all that has been submitted.
That's a lot.
Mhm.
That's those are
And
huge.
should some of these actually be approved and be funded, like you said, they take time to start up, that some of them, are they all anticipated to be starting immediately, or could they be started?
Are you talking about the ones that have been submitted?
Yeah, the ones that are.
Well, we'd have to go individually. We're starting to have grant consultation contract, consultation meetings with them. You also, if you'll note, if you'll scroll this way, Andrea, you'll also note, no, the other way. You'll also note that we have, quite a few that have picked, or I should say, maybe two or three that have picked goals that aren't even, high priority.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, I think,
They're a little bit high, like Galilee, goal 500, $500,000 up right there.
yeah, I think we just have to be, like, your first comment or your last
Yeah.
comment to what you said the first time was, just being more judicial and understanding what may be coming in so we can decide how we want to allocate things. Because sometimes you might get a grant at the beginning of the fiscal year. You're like, yeah, we've got 5 million to allocate. So we're gonna give you 1.5 million, and then we're shortfall at the end. So,
And I think some of the time, when we bring grants forward, when they are complete, as we've had some that have been approved that were outside of the normal priorities, that's utilizing some of the time that could potentially be going towards.
well, and this goes
getting
back to me as the strategic plan is like our areas of focus. How do we want to fund these things? We're gonna get, people are always gonna request more and more money, and that's great. We can maybe play a part in it, but our strategic plan should guide us in which ones we want to really fund, which ones we want to be a partner with. Because, Loma Linda is requesting, $5 million,
$6
6 million. I'm like, it's Loma Linda's in the Redlands. It's like,
They're building a satellite office in Red.
right,
Garage.
but how does that,
Common.
how should we benefit? I mean, I know you're coming here, but your headquarters are there. Like, we're focused. Anyways, and how do we as a district want to play a part in that?
Well, and as we're looking at it, I mean, the first three are part of our high priority goals. There's smaller amounts, so those could be considered if we're talking about just the 500,000 that we have remaining. But then, to your point, Director Logston, like some of those larger multi-million-dollar ones, it's not like we need to fund all of it. We might have to consider funding lesser amounts.
Or we fund a part, or you want to build a building, we'll build the building and that'll be a part of our capital asset allocation. And we'll do what we do for DPMG. We'll give you good rent and a tenant improvement budget.
The building, they already. But I mean.
But that would be an
but your
option
point,
because,
I agree.
because then that gives us more flexibility rather than just handing over the money. It actually gives
I
us
agree.
more involvement in the delivery of the care. Because once we allocate the money, it's,
Yeah,
we don't really have.
to give money to.
We become a
everybody.
pass-through entity, and at that point, you become almost unnecessary. Why doesn't Riverside just do it if you're gonna just pass through? So I think the
Right.
ability to have a budget and manage it appropriately really.
And tying into the strategic plan as well, working with Soen, they're also looking at, if you remember that chart?
Oh, I remember
Grant maker, reactive versus an actual,
plan.
what was the word? I can't remember what they called it. We were talking about it today,
Right.
but it's more how healthcare is being affected, leveraging everybody.
It's impactful.
It's a collective impact.
And it's the amplifier. I think I use the word amplifier.
Yeah,
Amplifier,
amplifier was one of the words.
Yes, right. Health.
So let's pay attention.
Something health
Something
amplifier.
health
It
amplifier.
was helpful, but no, I thought that was really, yeah, we brought it up last meeting we were there. We hammered that home because I think
Yeah.
that's really where we impact. And I don't know how much we amplify here, but I would move to say, hey, let's keep the current budget as is. If there are things that come in and you say, hey, the program committee's like, we've got to fund this year, then we come back and we do some one-off items to increase. We do continuing resolutions and things at the federal level all the time. We can do that here, and we know we've got 3 million. My question to you is, how much in surplus do you think we should have left over in a year? You want to target 2 million left over? That way we've got some flex funds. So maybe we say, hey, maybe there's 1 million that we're talking about now that we might be comfortable approving if it met high priority and immediacy.
That might be a way to look at
That's
it.
kind of the way I think about managing it. We keep to our budget, and if there's something that comes back as a CR, then it doesn't look like we've blown our budget, but we said, hey, we're taking an initiative.
But
separate.
I think from the program committee side, we need to take a hard look at some of these multi-million dollar ones that may meet our high priority. And either determine, okay, do we look at funding, potentially funding a smaller part of it? Or we just have to kick that down the road?
I think it rolls into our strategic plan personally. I think you take this and someone's here with us and say, look, how does this roll into what we want to do? Does it or does it not? We may need some outside people to help us look at that and say, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think part of it too is setting caps on grant awards. I think that's one of the things that, I think as the community learned that of the sale of the hospital, that correlated with the
It's like
spike.
winning the lottery.
Exactly,
Like
that
winning the
correlated with
lottery.
the spike in the higher dollar value grant awards grant applications that were coming in, so the community saying, you got more money, now our highest was gonna be slightly higher, then I think that might be a
And
solution.
some of these are professional grant appliers. Some of these people have, all they have are grant writers sitting on the boards doing.
Are we doing multi-million dollar grant?
Again, that's a strategic.
So-
I think that, when you think about, we're already 6 months into this. And so we should be doing a look at how are we doing our budget? And we have expended a lot of money the first 6 months. And now we have, I don't know if it's gonna be 20% that's left or less than 20% for the full budget. We cannot continue at business as usual with just this 500,000. There's just no way that we should do that. So I like what you're saying about looking at some surplus, being able to move it over. And looking not only the priority areas, but we didn't think about this at the beginning of the fiscal year. Now we could have been that we funded, and I don't like going down this way, okay? Like, cause I like looking at the whole Coachella Valley.
Go ahead, though.
We're all, one Coachella Valley. But if we have funded, again, what you just finished saying, some of these organizations that are really good at funding and getting those applications in, and that now we're looking at some of the organizations that
Look at some of
maybe
them that are a
haven't,
little smaller.
that smaller organizations that are serving or need to serve the hard to serve areas, that's when it comes into equity, which is one of our parts of our.
That is actually a very good statement. That is
So-
exactly where equity comes in, is like you don't have the skill set to know how to apply for this money, even though you would benefit in your community. 100%.
And to be able to make that money available to those communities. So I think that's another lens we have to be looking at is, in those areas, if any of these organizations that are looking at serving our Desert Hot Springs area, our Mecca area, in areas that are harder to reach, I think we need to throw that into as part of.
Or just smaller organizations.
Or
that-
smaller organizations,
I
yes.
think about the children's museum here, like I saw her here. They don't have anybody apply. It's her writing the grants. They don't have a professional grant writer who knows how to what it's like to write a grant. It's challenging. There's a lot of, checks and balances you have to go through. So
Would it be worthy of coming from the finance
Yes.
department or committee recommending an increase to the grant budget of, say, $1 million? That still leaves the potential of a $2 million surplus. We can revisit that at any point. But it gives a budget level, and then the program committee, then they're the ones that are doing what you guys are talking about right now. Where they have to evaluate, okay, I now have 1.5 million that I'm working with, 500 currently, plus the additional million.
potential million. I don't want to say sometimes you give people $1 million, they're like, all right, we're going to give it away. It's like,
Well, but I think with this that we're talking about, and we've got this list of, and there's still gonna be those that are gonna want to complete their application. It puts the program committee into more
they were already put on a budget though. They just overspent. They
of
knew they only had
of
5.
that role of really taking a look at what we really need to focus on for the rest of the year. I mean, that's like, if we look at last month's program committee, we had 2 or 3 or 4 that were non-priority goals.
2 were declined.
2 were declined,
Wow.
but 1 was approved to go forward. Well, at this point, I think we should be looking at if they're non-priority, I'm sorry, they take a back seat unless they have some sense of urgency, like what we're talking about. But
What do you think about, we say, hey, we think we could allocate $1 million if you found out what we needed, rather than guaranteeing it, but, you know, we've looked at our budget, we said, look. If you find things of importance, we can approve those up to this. Don't, you know, I prefer them to keep within their budget they committed to at the beginning of the year.
absolutely.
But if you say, hey, you got $1.5 million, they're gonna spend that by the end of the fiscal year.
Well, and I'm saying, I think we're saying the same
We're saying,
thing.
I'm saying, I could recommend up to $1 million approval, but I would maybe prefer that we do it in increments. Here's the 300,000, you've got these two things you wanna fund, we'll increase up to that. We're not going above it.
Or to be able to make the communication that, hey, program committee, you really have to look at what really makes most sense for the remainder of this year while we're, while we're working for a strategic plan. Gives them a budget to work with. And the board can always come back and increase it if they choose to.
There's also the idea that if you're looking at look at what has been submitted, what can be
Yeah.
put on hold.
Yeah.
Until we get the strategic plan, but then there's also what is.
That's what I'm asking about. Ones can't be put on hold. You're like, hey,
Well, we haven't even got it, but if we want to keep our mobile unit going to the underserved areas, I mean,
We gotta
I
get
think the
that.
majority of the dollars should go to that to keep
Well,
that
that-
going. He's already got all kinds of organizations asking, where the hell are you? And we can't do anything because their contracts
see, that's the
expired.
important stuff that I say, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
to me, that right there, if you say, hey, we need that $750 to go to the finance district, you know, to the foundation. And
I'm
that's,
just hearing different things. First you say we don't need it, then we do need it, then we don't need it.
well, he's saying that they haven't even submitted the grant yet, though. So what she's
The grant
suggesting,
would come from the district, leave foundation alone.
Okay, okay, okay.
So look at what's gonna make the most impact.
but see, you guys know that timeline, and I think
Yeah.
part of having new board members and everything going on, is that we don't always understand what's coming in through the program committee and what time. I think you mentioned it. So now we know that DPMG is gonna be submitting their grant that they're gonna want to have approved probably before the end of the fiscal year to keep going, right?
Well, should have been approved before the end of this last year.
Because one of the things we've all agreed upon is that the impactful thing that you guys are doing in the community, those mobile units are by far one of the most, I think, biggest impact.
Intercare is important, but, they've missed the JCGME timeline, and we're working with Jermaine and having, now there's a new timeline for the ACGME accreditation and getting their
Sure.
program. So, I mean, we know we probably commit to that because the concept is great. We need residents and we need,
Concept
Yeah.
I can commit to, yeah.
yeah. That is something that,
Who
because the
executes it?
timeline is, the ball is in their court, the timeline is tied into ACGME, but that can also be until the new strategic plan happens as
Correct.
well.
As far as the funding goes.
So I'll move to, agree to approve up to $1 million of additional. Our recommendation to the board, I think that I'd like to have a consensus here is agree to approve up to $1 million in budget extension, right? And I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'll make a motion to do that. And again, I don't know how we do that. We have to give the full, the million all has to be there, or they have to submit to us and we say,
Well, and again, if you think of budget, you don't have to spend all the budget.
that's
So
but it's like if
You're
you had.
establishing it, but then we're giving it some criteria to the program committee that they need to be discretionary.
I think a statement in there should be, for next year, like, this is a one time, I don't want this to become a habit of, well, they'll just increase it because we have surplus.
Because I think then
That's just a bad
communication-
habit.
Because the communication to the program committee tomorrow then is that the finance committee approved.
Daddy's not happy.
Enough to million bucks more. So this-
Well, but understand that DPMG has to take a portion of that probably, so they need to know that that's coming in.
That's what I mean by, setting some, the program committee then needs to set some parameters as to how to utilize the
Okay.
funds.
There's pressure. I think that makes a lot of
So I
sense.
think the key there is that both of these are recommendations that go to the board, so they'll still be
Yeah.
the group discussion when you get both of the feedback.
So I'll make a motion to approve an additional $1 million in budget as a recommendation for the finance committee. What do you think? Letty? Want to do that or not?
I
That's
do,
my motion statement. We can either kill it or we can.
And that's not a set in stone.
okay, that's what I want,
The
is that,
budget or
that
the-
we could actually, if we see an application that the program committee is saying, we really want to fund it, but we don't have any money because the board's already approved, that we could actually say, this is really important to us and we need to increase that amount, because we do have it as a surplus. It's not that we're not.
But But I think with the communication with program committee that they're
Okay.
recognizing that you do have 1.5 million to deal with from here to
June.
end of June.
But
And you
also
used it,
look at the equity issue. I
Absolutely.
definitely want that to be, that we don't fund, something that could,
Well, they can go get funding elsewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's.
Or
It
to
could
wait
be
till the
partial
strategic
funding.
plan.
Well, that's,
And I
or it
wait
could wait,
till
and
the-
there's a lot of things that can wait, because none of these are life threatening. I think the only thing really that's,
yeah, yeah.
that one is actually directly delivering
But
care.
if we
Well,
get.
that
into
one
the
is
next-
equity right there written all
Right.
over it. That's what it was created for.
But if we get into the next probably 3 months, and whatever we haven't awarded then, I think it can be very selective. And, we did sizable grants for 6 months. We did the RFP deal, which was over $1 million, just, it's.
Well, the RFP that I've always been in favor of, because you're looking at everyone and that you're dividing up the pie between
Absolutely.
them. The ones that I know all of the ones that we've approved were very necessary and were,
Yeah.
worthwhile. It's just that I just think that they benefited because they came in before
Mhm.
we made this decision. We were under the impression that we had money to take us to June 30th, and now we're saying it's only gonna
Well,
take us really this month.
Normally we do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had several years where we've had to carry over
Or the
excess
surplus.
of our budget because we didn't spend or we didn't award the full 5 million. So this
So
is.
probably lesson learned every month when we will have our grant payment schedules, we will hone in and say, now board, look at
Here's
the
what you have-
balance.
Yeah,
Or here's how much you've allocated. If
Yeah.
you're in month one, you've allocated 30%, that's too much.
That's
Yeah,
a
And look at the
document
high
right there.
priority areas.
Yeah.
I think some of these lower priority areas, I think there's some direct services that are very valuable. And we're not talking about, these are applications that have been submitted. There's probably ones that are in the works. We just see
No,
the
no, it's a
list, right?
3.5 million.
So do we shut off the valve? Do we say all applications are done?
Well, that's part of budgeting is that you don't want to turn it off completely, but you can't leave it open the whole time either.
Right.
I think that all of these that are in place need to be considered, but looking at what is the funding that's available, which all these things that you pointed out here, the ones that can wait, put them off. The ones that are in high need areas, we consider them, but maybe a lesser amount,
Mhm.
but looking at it with a little bit more of a reality check.
Yeah, and I think that's all we're asking, is that, with the program. And ultimately the full board, because I think we want to give as much money to any of these organizations as we can, and even those that are, applying under the low priority or no non-priority goals and that, they have some value to.
It's got a big impact.
But we have to, any other funders, they have to do the same kind of evaluation. And unfortunately, some organizations don't get money.
But I just think of the reserves, the fact that we do have reserves. So that's, if we didn't have it, I would say, of course, we have to live within our means.
If we knew for sure, in my opinion, if we knew for sure that the lease deal was slam dunk, then I'd feel more comfortable in using more of the 70
But it's
million.
the same thing you have though. How do you know there's not gonna be another grant in 2 years from now that's better than this one? So you still have to operate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? 'Cause you
That's
still have to think that
parameter.
30
Yeah.
years from now, there may be something in year 10 that comes in. You're like, man, I wish we hadn't spent everything we had because now we're missing out on that something that
Right.
really needs to be done.
And
So
that's why we're really trying to
That's why the
focus
strategic
with
plan
the
is-
strategic
And
plan.
that's why it's
And put
really,
some dollars associated with whatever the 5-year plan that we have. Have dollars aligned with that so that we can then use that to budget accordingly for the future and how we invest. So,
I did want
We
to
do.
note, on here, and this would be something helpful. Would you mind scrolling over just a little bit to the left there? On one of the first pages of the report shows our variances over 25,000. And so the very bottom, that 7,000 grant expense will show you proportionally what we spent to the budget, because the budget's going to
Yeah.
be, based on how many months we've had in, because we equally allocated over the year. And so this report right here will be a good gauge on.
well, it shows you're already over budget. So it should be 0 if you're allocating month to month, right? Is that what you're saying? If you're
If
allocating
we're-
appropriately monthly,
Proportionally,
Evenly, yeah.
yeah, it's just the grant applications in the past, there's times where we have, potentially a couple months where we
Negative,
didn't
yeah.
get something going through, and then we have the surgical ones. The difference today versus what we've seen in the past is just those huge dollar amounts that we
Take 20 or
Yeah.
30% of the budget, swipe.
have seen, so.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Yeah, but that's a good point, is that we have known that it's been going up and we haven't stopped it. So that is what,
Well, it's also kind of it bills and then you'll have months where you don't approve very big.
Exactly.
So it's really hard to
Mm.
function on a kind of a month-to-month budget here. It really has to be this yearly plan, understanding. And the problem is we get grants throughout the year. And so that's, I think, where you have to allocate so much for emergency. This has to be funded this year. This one maybe has to get funded and maybe next year we allocate a little more. And that's part of the strategic plan is maybe something is outside the budget, the typical grant item budget. It's something we fund separately with those extra leftover funds. You say, hey, this is too big to put into our grant budget because it blows our grant budget, but it's big enough for us to do it separately from different avenues. So there is a motion.
I'll move your motion
Yeah.
forward.
Okay, second,
I second it.
second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any public comment?
No.
Do you have any thoughts or comments or?
Question, have these grants already gone to the program committee? No, they've just been
Everything on
submitted,
there is not.
nothing has gone.
Some of it has.
Some of those have been talked about for a long time.
Yeah, they've been talked about.
Well, some have been talked about, but as far as going.
None have
to the
gone through.
board,
The full-
Maybe Eisenhower and Clinic.
Yeah, I recognize
The
that.
Eisenhower
Yeah.
and.
And-
Yeah,
Intercare.
but everything on the bottom,
But those were brought as,
oh, the $5 million.
was it
More,
outside?
more discussions. We haven't gone to a full.
Bring this to our board. You'll have Eric
On
just throw this in there.
So they haven't been evaluated.
For-
by the
for
program
our
committee.
finance.
All to know.
Just put it on finance.
two of them
Going
have.
forward
Mhm.
As a
The-
line item down here. You can just-
Clinicus, the
It's nice to.
fourth from the bottom,
Oh, I see.
and that's one that we're doing the study sessions on.
Yeah, kind of been,
You'll hear
when we
more
have our
about those.
conversations, we talk about those things.
Yeah.
So residency program.
Really doesn't really get.
And then there's a $3 million one up above that's for Eisenhower. And go up a little.
That had already gone away.
We did, we had got rid
Is
of.
the one above it?
Oh, 1 point,
Eisenhower.
oh, sorry. So it's those two.
We didn't get rid of it.
I do have to keep moving this forward. We gotta go to the next meeting.
I was thinking it was above. I didn't notice it on the bottom section, so
Yeah.
forgive me. Mary.
Been submitted and reviewed.
Yeah, it's been
Which
reviewed,
one?
but
Eisenhower.
Yeah, we reviewed that
Yeah.
one previously.
So it's just pending, so it's legal interpretation up there.
but none of the others have gone. Right?
All right. So we're gonna keep moving forward. Any final comments from any of the committee members?